General Motors is recalling nearly 600,000 vehicles due to a risk of engine failure.
Chevy's $100,000 dream car is now parked with a stop sale sticker that screams, "Unsafe."
The recall applies to certain Cadillac, Chevrolet, and GMC brands with model years between 2021 and 2024. Dealers have already begun notifying drivers last week, with owner letters set to be mailed on June 9th.
Corvette buyers thought they were bringing home America's supercar. Instead, they're stuck with machines that could burst into flames while fueling. And the part Chevy doesn't want you to notice? This isn't a glitch, it's a design failure. How does a flagship car turn into a fire hazard? Why did dealers have to freeze sales overnight? And what does this mean for every Chevy owner watching resale values sink? The stop sale scandal. Imagine walking into a dealership, seeing a gleaming Z06 with the kind of performance you thought only supercars could deliver, and then spotting a sticker on the window that says, "Not for sale." Why? Because the car could ignite while you are fueling it. The stop sale order slammed into dealers like a hammer. Cars were parked, money was frozen, and loyal fans were left embarrassed and furious. It is more than inconvenience. It is betrayal. People spend over $100,000 expecting not just speed, but safety, and Chevy gave them a potential bonfire on wheels. The pride of American engineering suddenly looked like a bad joke. Owners started posting photos on forums, showing flames engulfing cars they had worked their whole lives to afford. These are not statistics in a government filing, they are burned dreams. When customers shell out six figures, they are not paying for recalls, they are paying for peace of mind. Chevy ripped that away. Owners did not just lose access to a car, they lost faith in a dream. For many, the Corvette was more than transportation. It was the symbol of American pride. Watching it sidelined felt like betrayal stamped in metal. And if you think that is the only fire Chevy lit, wait until you see what is happening under the hood of their trucks. V8 engine recall disaster? We paid top dollar for American muscle. And Chevy gave us ticking time bombs. That is how Silverado and Tahoe owners feel after the recall of hundreds of thousands of V8 engines. These were supposed to be the heart and soul of the lineup, the very thing people trust to tow their trailers, haul their families, and carry the legacy of Detroit toughness. Instead, connecting rods and crankshafts inside these engines were defective, creating the risk of sudden failure. One second you are driving down the highway, the next you are coasting to the shoulder with a dead truck. Think about the insult here. Buyers dropped $60,000 or $70,000 on trucks and SUVs marketed as bulletproof. They stretched their budgets, signed long loans, and trusted the brand their parents once swore by. And what did they get? Letters in the mail, warning that the engine might fail. The anger is not just about mechanics. It is about pride. For decades, people bought Chevy to prove they believed in American quality. Now they feel like fools. Instead of bragging at the job site, they are apologizing for why their expensive truck is back in the shop again. The recall letters were not apologies. They were admissions that something sacred was broken. Every Chevy loyalist who once defended the brand against critics now had to face the truth. Their beloved engines were not dependable. They were defective liabilities. But engines blowing up was not even Chevy's biggest embarrassment. The courts dragged them through the mud next. If you're angry at how Chevy betrayed loyal drivers, hit like right now and drop a comment below. Tell me if you'd still trust them with your money. 8-speed transmission fiasco. Imagine paying $50,000 for a truck that jerks like a clunker. That is exactly what happened to tens of thousands of Chevy and GMC owners stuck with the infamous 8-speed transmission. Instead of smooth power, drivers got shuddering, lurching, and unpredictable gear changes. Families described it as terrifying, especially when merging onto highways. Mechanics called it a flawed design from the start, yet Chevy sold it anyway. The outrage grew until class action lawsuits exploded, and the case became a symbol of a company that fought its customers instead of fixing its cars. Chevy's courtroom defense only poured salt into the wound. Yes, lawyers managed to delay or decertify parts of the case, but legal victories did not repair trust. To the average owner, the message was clear. Corporate lawyers were more important than loyal customers. Every time the transmission jerked, it reminded drivers that Chevy knew about the problem, yet chose profit over responsibility. Word spread across forums, news outlets, and social media. If you buy one of these trucks, expect to fight not just the transmission, but the company itself. Every shudder reminded drivers of the gap between promises and reality. Trucks marketed as strong and steady betrayed their owners in daily commutes. That embarrassment turned into anger, fueling lawsuits that spoke louder than any recall notice ever could. And just when we thought the worst was behind them, Chevy's so-called halo car went up in smoke, literally, refueling fire design flaw. You should not fear your car catching fire at a gas station, yet that is exactly what Corvette owners faced when it was revealed that spilled fuel could be sucked into a side fan, atomized, and blown onto hot components in the engine bay. The result? Flames bursting out while the car is sitting at the pump. Imagine standing there with the nozzle in your hand, watching your $100,000 dream machine ignite in front of you. That is not luxury. That is a nightmare. Chevy's engineering mistake turned everyday refueling into a gamble. Forums filled with horror stories, cars torched in minutes, owners barely escaping with their lives, and dealers powerless to sell brand new stock. Instead of celebrating their purchase, customers were being told to wait indefinitely while Chevy scrambled for a fix. For many, that was the final straw. You can forgive a squeaky seat or a software bug, but you cannot forgive a car that threatens your safety every time you top off the tank. The Corvette was supposed to be the crown jewel, the proof that Chevy colds still stand tall. Now it has become the poster child for negligence. The Corvette was supposed to be safe enough for your children to admire at car shows, not a hazard they needed to run from. Instead of inspiring awe, Chevy left families asking if a gas station could become a death trap. But these disasters are not random. They are the result of how Chevy runs its whole operation. Leadership shortcuts. This was not bad luck, it was bad leadership. Chevy's problems are not isolated incidents. They are the direct result of executives pushing cars out the door faster than their own systems could handle. Every shortcut taken in the boardroom eventually lands on the shoulders of customers, and now we are paying the price. When the Corvette Z06 was rushed to market, when V8 engines were shipped before testing was finished, and when transmissions were approved despite known flaws, these were not accidents. They were deliberate choices, the kind that happen when leadership prioritizes quarterly earnings over long-term trust. Inside Chevy, engineers and managers knew timelines were unrealistic. Insiders have admitted that pressure from the top forced them to ignore warning signs. Instead of slowing down, Chevy doubled down, believing customers would never notice or would simply accept repairs later. That gamble failed. The recalls, lawsuits, and stop sales proved that the shortcuts caught up. Customers were treated as guinea pigs, paying premium prices for cars that should have never been signed off in the first place. Leadership gambled with the brand, and we lost. When leaders chase Wall Street's approval instead of customers' trust, the outcome is inevitable. What should have been careful craftsmanship became careless speed. Chevy forgot that rushing cars to market is not innovation. It is negligence disguised as progress. And when they finally admitted problems, they did not tell the truth straight. They spun it. Corporate spin versus owner truth. Chevy says, rare issue. We say, tell that to the guy watching his car burn. Time and again, GM has downplayed massive defects as if they were minor inconveniences. When fires broke out in Corvettes, the official language described it as a limited number of incidents. But owners standing next to smoking wrecks did not feel like statistics. They felt abandoned. Families whose trucks lost engines on the highway were told failures were uncommon, yet thousands received recall notices. Chevy wanted us to believe these disasters were flukes. Customers saw them as patterns. The contrast between corporate press releases and raw owner experiences could not be sharper. On forums, people post photos of their cars engulfed in flames, accompanied by words like total loss and lucky to be alive. At the same time, executives speak in vague terms about addressing customer concerns. This mismatch proves one thing: GM is more worried about headlines than human beings. Every time they soften the language, they harden public anger. You cannot call a raging fire rare and expect anyone to trust you again. Public relations cannot erase lived experiences. While executives drafted polished lines, owners were left with burned garages and stranded families. Language meant to soften the damage only deepened resentment, proving that respect is earned through action, not carefully worded statements. And that spin is killing more than trust. It is wrecking their business at the dealership too. Discounts as desperation. Discounts are not deals. They are desperation. Walk into a Chevy lot today, and you will see trucks plastered with markdowns of $7,000 or $8,000. On paper, it looks like generosity. In reality, it is survival. Chevy is being forced to bribe customers back into showrooms after scandal upon scandal scared them away. What should have been steady demand has collapsed, leaving unsold stock piling up. For the company, these markdowns are not about competing with Ford or Ram. They are about proving they can still move metal at all. The problem is that desperation discounts send a dangerous message. They tell buyers that sticker prices are meaningless, that a truck advertised at $70,000 is really worth $62,000 or less. Once customers learn to wait for rebates, they never pay full price again. Chevy has trained its own audience to distrust the number on the window. At the same time, heavy incentives crush resale values, leaving loyal owners underwater when they try to trade in. Discounts may move inventory for now, but they destroy confidence for tomorrow. Every markdown is another signpost of collapse. Incentives may shift inventory today, but they devalue loyalty tomorrow. Chevy is teaching buyers to wait, to doubt, to hesitate. That hesitation kills confidence, and confidence is the heartbeat of every car brand. And if discounts cannot save Chevy, maybe nothing will, because customers are not just losing money, they are losing faith. Collapse of trust. Trust does not come back with a coupon. You cannot erase years of recalls, lawsuits, and fires with a rebate. Every disaster Chevy has faced now blends together in the minds of consumers. It does not matter if it was a Corvette bursting into flames or a Silverado losing its engine. The takeaway is the same. Chevy cannot be trusted. That perception has spread like wildfire, far beyond the specific models involved. Even buyers looking at small crossovers or entry-level sedans now hesitate, wondering if the badge itself is cursed. Once trust is gone, no amount of advertising can bring it back quickly. Customers talk to each other, they share horror stories online, and they carry those warnings into dealerships. The stigma sticks. Chevy has allowed its brand name to be dragged from pride to punchline. What was once like a rock now feels fragile. Shoppers do not want to gamble tens of thousands of dollars on a company that keeps making headlines for the wrong reasons. The fallout is not limited to one recall or one model. It is a shadow cast across the entire lineup. Trust is not a marketing strategy. It is the foundation of ownership. Once the bond between buyer and brand is severed, no campaign can repair it quickly. Chevy's repeated failures have turned skepticism into certainty, a certainty that hurts every model. And when trust cracks, regulators and rivals pounce. Government probes. When the government steps in, you know it is bad. Regulators do not waste time on small glitches. They mobilize when lives are at risk. That is exactly what happened when the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration launched probes into Chevy's quality failures. Suddenly, the brand was not just facing angry customers on forums, it was answering to Washington. Investigators demanded data, defect reports, and timelines, and each request cost General Motors time and money they could not spare. Every probe meant more lawyers, more consultants, and more delays in getting vehicles back on the road. For Chevy, the damage goes beyond dollars. Once NHTSA is involved, the public sees headlines filled with words like unsafe, probe, and recall. Those words linger longer than any corporate statement. To the average driver, oversight feels like confirmation that the company cannot be trusted to police itself. It is one thing for an owner to complain online. It is another for the federal government to say, this car is not safe. Chevy found itself trapped under a microscope, and the more regulators looked, the more problems surfaced. Investigations bring headlines no company wants: safety failures, regulatory warnings, and congressional hearings. Each probe carves deeper into Chevy's credibility. When oversight replaces self-regulation, the public understands the truth. Leadership lost control long before Washington arrived. But Washington was not the only one cashing in on Chevy's mistakes. Rebate red flags. Chevy calls it a rebate. We call it a red flag. Every time a dealer advertises a giant markdown, it looks less like generosity and more like panic. Buyers are not fooled. They know a truck advertised at $70,000 will really sell for $62,000 after incentives, which means the sticker price is just a fantasy. Chevy's approach to discounts has turned shopping into a waiting game. Hold out long enough and you will be rewarded with a bigger rebate. That training kills long-term value and erodes the meaning of MSRP altogether. For loyal owners, the consequences are brutal. Resale values drop because everyone expects the next buyer to demand thousands off. Trade-ins are worth less, leases lose appeal, and customers who paid near full price feel cheated. Chevy is stuck in a vicious cycle: slash prices to move stock, then watch as future buyers demand even more concessions. The rebate culture signals weakness. It tells the world Chevy has no confidence in its own pricing. For competitors, that weakness is an invitation to strike. Customers are not celebrating rebates. They are questioning why they exist at all. If a truck truly held its value, no bribes would be necessary. Incentives are not generosity. They are signals that something is fundamentally broken in the sales pipeline. Meanwhile, rivals were licking their chops. And one brand used Chevy's stumble as free advertising. We're just scratching the surface, and the fallout only gets worse. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter. Because Chevy's story isn't finished, and neither is ours. Rival opportunism. Ford did not have to win. Chevy handed them the trophy. The Mustang may have been stumbling in sales, but in comparison to Corvettes catching fire at gas stations, it suddenly looked like a safe bet. Dealers seized the moment. Ads highlighted Ford's reliability and discounts, and the message spread fast. While Chevy was backpedaling, Ford was standing tall. Shoppers who once considered themselves lifelong Chevy fans found themselves wandering across the street to Ford lots. Brand loyalty melted under the weight of embarrassment. The timing could not have been worse for Chevy. While lawsuits and recalls dominated headlines, Ford got to play the role of the steady alternative. Ram and Dodge also leaned into the moment, reminding buyers of raw horsepower without the risk of fire. For years, Chevy tried to position the Corvette as America's crown jewel. Now Ford could market the Mustang as the muscle car that did not explode under pressure. Perception is everything in this market, and Chevy had lost control of theirs. For Ford, the opportunity was priceless. They did not need to redesign the Mustang overnight. They just had to let Chevy implode. Perception shifted with no effort, as Chevy's crisis became Ford's marketing gift, served free of charge. And while Ford cashed in on perception, Chevy's everyday models started scaring off even the loyalists. Halo car stigma spreading. If Chevy's Halo car cannot be trusted, why trust their daily drivers? That is the question spreading through living rooms, work sites, and car forums across the country. The Corvette scandal is not contained to a niche group of sports car buyers. It has poisoned the entire brand. Silverado and Tahoe owners are second-guessing their purchases. Families who once proudly parked Chevys in their driveways are now asking if the most expensive model is unsafe. How can the cheaper ones be reliable? That doubt is devastating because it spreads faster than any recall notice. This is how brand collapse begins. A single high-profile disaster triggers anxiety that touches every product in the lineup. Even models unaffected by recalls are tainted by association. Dealers can discount, advertise, and reassure all they want, but the stigma sticks. People do not want to gamble $40,000 or $50,000 on a brand that looks cursed. Chevy is no longer fighting a single scandal. It is fighting a full-blown crisis of identity. Brand trust is contagious in both directions. Just as one strong model can elevate an entire lineup, one catastrophic scandal can poison it. The Corvette's collapse spread doubt like wildfire, leaving every Chevy driver wondering if they were next. And that fear does not just hurt sales, it triggers a chain reaction across politics, unions, and Wall Street. Political backlash. Chevy just gave politicians their new punching bag. Nothing gets lawmakers more fired up than a corporate scandal they can turn into headlines. Recalls, stop sales, and flaming Corvettes have handed Congress exactly the kind of ammunition it loves. Senate hearings are already circling. Watchdogs are drafting press releases, and every statement frames Chevy as the symbol of corporate greed gone unchecked. For politicians, this is easy theater. Stand in front of cameras and say that American families are being betrayed by the very companies that claim to represent them. The fallout is more than words. Oversight committees can force executives to testify, regulators can tighten safety rules, and government watchdogs can fine the company millions. Suddenly, Chevy is not just fighting angry customers and disappointed fans, it is fighting the United States government. That fight is expensive, embarrassing, and impossible to win in the court of public opinion. The more Chevy tries to spin the narrative, the more politicians double down. Chevy has become the face of a wider story, the decline of American manufacturing standards. Politicians thrive on villains, and Chevy volunteered itself. Every soundbite about corporate greed or falling American standards chips away at the brand's reputation. Chevy is no longer just a car company in crisis. It is a symbol of national decline. And if Congress makes noise, the unions make thunder. Union response. When the line stops, the workers speak. Chevy's recalls have not only tarnished the brand in showrooms, they have rattled confidence on the factory floor. Union members look at each shutdown and see proof of what they have been warning about for years. Rushed schedules, corner cutting, and management ignoring frontline voices. Every worker knows you cannot build safe cars if you are being pushed to hit impossible quotas. Now that cars are burning at gas stations and engines are failing on highways, those warnings have been tragically confirmed. Union leaders are seizing the moment. They argue for more time to inspect vehicles, more training for new hires, and stronger protections against being blamed for executive mistakes. Workers know that when recalls hit, the public does not blame the CEO in a suit. They blame the people on the assembly line. That anger filters down unfairly, and the only shield workers have is collective bargaining. Chevy's crisis gives them leverage, but also fear. If sales collapse, jobs are at risk. It is a bitter mix of opportunity and anxiety on the shop floor. Workers know better than anyone that quality takes time. They warned management, and now the consequences are public. Each recall validates their call for safer conditions and smarter schedules, proving that corporate speed undermines both product reliability and worker dignity. But Wall Street does not care about workers. It cares about money. Investor panic. Nothing spooks investors like parking lots full of unsellable cars. Chevy's stop sales and endless recalls mean thousands of vehicles are stuck, waiting for fixes, instead of bringing in cash. Each parked car represents not only lost revenue, but mounting costs. GM is eating warranty expenses, paying dealers for floor plan financing, and throwing rebates at customers just to move inventory. Investors see those balance sheets and panic. The stock price reflects that fear, punishing the company every time another defect makes headlines. To Wall Street, loyalty means nothing. Numbers tell the story. Analysts calculate billions in potential losses, and suddenly, what looks like a powerhouse of American manufacturing looks like a shaky bet. Shareholders worry that GM's best years are behind it, while rivals gain ground. A company once praised for its resilience is now being framed as fragile. Investors sell, hedge funds short, and Chevy's reputation takes another hit. But the stock market's panic is just one piece of the puzzle, because for all the talk of Wall Street, the people who feel this most directly are us. But while Wall Street panics, it is us, the buyers, who have to make the real decision. Consumer crossroads. We are left holding the keys or walking away. At the end of the day, Chevy's crisis lands in the driveways of ordinary people. Buyers now face a crossroads. Trust the brand to fix its mistakes, or switch to rivals like Ford, Ram, or Toyota. Some may wait for bargains, hoping Chevy slashes prices further, while others will refuse to risk their family's safety, no matter the discount. Either way, the scandal has changed how we shop. No longer is Chevy seen as the automatic choice for American reliability. It is now viewed as a gamble. Consumers are not blind. They talk to each other at work, online, and in dealerships, sharing experiences of engines failing, transmissions jerking, and cars catching fire. That collective memory shapes future sales more than any ad campaign. Chevy can issue fixes, offer coupons, and push incentives, but it cannot erase the feeling of betrayal. Once a customer loses faith, it is almost impossible to win them back. The real shutdown is not in the factories. It is in the minds of consumers deciding what brand they want in their driveway next. Because if the next tank of gas still smells like fear, Chevy's shutdown will not just be temporary. Chevy's crisis isn't just their downfall, it's our wake-up call. The cars we drive, the money we spend, and the trust we give are all on the line. Stay sharp, stay questioning, and remember, what just happened with Chevy could happen anywhere, to anyone. Next.